This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. So joining me today to talk a little bit about a subject that I think is near and dear to both of our hearts, and that topic is white supremacy, is Benjamin Dixon. Benjamin, thanks for taking some time today to join me and talk about something so important.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
But before I get started, let me shower praise upon you. There are few people in the business that we are in who I respect more. Maybe there's no one that I respect more than you for your clear-spokenness and your courage to tackle the monsters among us on a daily basis, mainly on Twitter, but also on your show, The Benjamin Dixon Show, your podcast. I just wanted to, before we get started here, I'm fanboying a little bit. So
listen, I feel the same way about your work, not to go tit for tat, but I'm honored to be here, and I appreciate your kind words. And we need more people like you and like we there's a fight out there, and we're ready for it.
Well, again, thank you for being here. Let's jump right into this. So white supremacy, white nationalism is now in right-wing circles or conservative circles, just mainstream Republicanism is an accepted format and in-group for them. You've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is now by her own mouth, an avowed white Christian nationalist. She would say Christian nationalist, but as I've said many times on my show, anytime you hear the word Christian nationalist, you should just shadow insert white in front of it, because there are no black Christian nationalists. It is inherently an element of white supremacy. So having said that, there are two clips that I ran across from Right Wing Watch that involve the simping, the representation, the carrying of water of white supremacy from Vivek Ramaswamy, who is now a Republican candidate for president and apparently doing his best to get picked to be vice president for Donald Trump. Now, this first clip is Abby Johnson, who is a radical right-wing, anti-choice, anti-abortion psychopath who is apparently before a congregation, before a group of Christians, warning about Vivek Ramaswamy because he's a Hindu. He's not a Christian, and to them, it is dangerous. Watch this.
Satan is the author of confusion, and we know that. And right now, the battle is coming for the presidential nomination, and there's a man who is gaining traction right now as the presidential nominee, and his name is Vivek Ramaswamy, and he is Hindu. And those who are Hindu believe in many gods. And he speaks well, and he is very charismatic, and he says the right things. He says so many right things. Sometimes I'm like, maybe he is the right guy, but he's not, because our God will not be mocked. And you know what? You know who he reminds me of sometimes? Barack Obama. Because he is charismatic. He says all the right things. Do not be fooled, friends. Do not be fooled. Do not be a victim of Satan's confusion right now. This is an important time for us to have clarity of mind as we are going into an election cycle. So please discern, please use discernment right now, because God hates those who are willing to put up idols over him, and he will not be mocked.
This coming from someone who purportedly supports the erecting, I almost said erection, the erecting of a literal golden statue of Donald Trump that they wheeled out and took pictures of with during CPAC, that their God will not be mocked. What is your take on this?
I was going to start in that same exact place. These are the people who literally rolled out that golden image of Donald Trump in the Speedo swim trunks. I don't remember he had on swim trunks. And there were people who bowed to it and took pictures of it. But I also think this is just really sad for Vivek. Right. He is doing everything that he can to get the nod from these white Christian nationalists. And they have made it clear on multiple occasions that they want nothing to do with him because he's Hindu. Listen, part of religious freedom in this country, which I observe, and I'm proud of my faith, but part of the freedom that I have to exercise my faith means that Vivek has the right to exercise his faith. Means that all the people have, and the freedom to not exercise faith. And that's the critical difference between a Christian nationalist and anyone else. They honestly believe that they and they alone have the right to dominate. They actually have a theology called Dominionism. They believe they have the right to dominate all of human society, especially the American government.
It is strange. Look, I come from this faith tradition that we just witnessed, Christian nationalism, a super radical right-wing version of Christianity, where they would be crying foul if it was the Mormons who were in charge. They are crying foul when a Hindu who's not in charge even presents himself to want to have a little bit of political power. They lose it. Now, there is a gentleman sitting to her left on the screen. I had to think about the orientation here. Hank Kunneman is his name, and he is a self-described, self-proclaimed prophet of God. This guy, he is also sharing this. Now, one of the reasons I think this is so dangerous and so pernicious is the fact that obviously reasonable people, right-minded people like us, see this for what it is. It is a grift. And it is also a promotion and giving the congregation permission to be as hateful and bigoted as they may feel personally.
Absolutely.
Now, the problem lies in the fact that there is the congregation, and this Hank Kunneman leads a congregation and is convincing them of this very same thing that you just heard Abby Johnson say. Watch this.
We are in danger as a country. And listen to me, Generation Z. Listen to me, millennials. Those of you that are watching, that you like this new young guy. If he does not serve the Lord Jesus Christ and stand primarily for Judeo-Christian principles, you will have a fight with God. What are we doing? Even entertaining the fact you're going to have some dude put his hand on something other than the Bible? You're going to let him put all of his strange gods up in the White House and we're just supposed to blink because he understands policies?
Well, one, who's putting all their gods up in the White House? Is this a thing that's happening? Did Donald Trump put up a shrine to Ronald McDonald? I mean, I don't understand where he's going, except for the fact that, again, he's giving his congregation permission, and you can hear him hooping and hollering, voicing their agreement that Vivek is not qualified because of his religion, which is wholly extra-constitutional.
Right. And I'm of the opinion that Vivek is not qualified because I don't think he's particularly smart. I think he plays the role of a smart person, but he's a smart person only to the ignorance that you find in the conservative movement. No one of any substance is actually impressed by Vivek. That said, his religion is the least of the problems with him, right? He is actively engaging in carrying the water. Like you said, he carries the water for white supremacy. He does everything he can to alienate and ostracize the LGBTQIA community. He loves targeting the Black community. So there's a long list of issues with him. First, I don't think he's intellectually robust enough to be president of the United States. Two, he's being as big of a bigot as he could possibly pull off for a nerd, right? It's kind of hard to pull off being a bigot and a nerd at the same time. He's doing the best that he can. Their problem isn't with any of those things. Their problem is with his faith, which shows you that their faith is exactly what we cannot afford to have in the White House ever again.
So what is your general take on these characters who are members of traditionally marginalized and brutalized groups, whether they be, LGBTQ Republicans or the Candace Owens of the world? Is it a grift, or is it them wanting some semblance of power? And this would be the most charitable and gracious view of it, I think, is is it they do want a voice, and because they rise to the top because there's so few, let's say, Black Republicans. What's their motivation here? And I'm not asking you to jump inside their heads, but what's your take?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot there, so we can do that, right? Let's jump into their heads. They really are looking to stand out in a crowd. Candace Owens started off as a liberal, as a progressive. She wasn't talented enough to actually gain traction in that field, and so she went over to the conservative movement. People like Byron Donalds, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy. You have any number of people who love to do the bidding of white supremacy for power, because that is the predominant power structure. So they align themselves with it. And then you have those who are honestly just out for a paycheck, because honestly, if I took my talents to the conservative movement, I probably would be a multi-millionaire 10 times over, simply because of how easy it is to grift in the conservative movement.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I mean, it is something that is repellent to me, working in service to white supremacy. And I'm white. I mean, it would benefit me as a white man to hold up and uphold the systems of white supremacy in this country, but it is dangerous and repellent. And for me, it's anathema to me that someone would work against their own interest, because once you're used up, Candace Owens or a host of others, once they're done with you, they're going to be done with you. Then the Nick Fuentes are going to take over, and they will have no use for a member of any one of these communities.
Absolutely. And while you have people who can get ahead by being transphobic right now, guarantee you, like people like Ben Shapiro, as soon as the fascists are done with the trans community, they're coming after them next. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I appreciate your perspective. Thanks for taking just a few moments out of your day, your busy day, to join me to talk about this. Where can people find you on the internets?
They can find me anywhere you download podcasts, and they can go over to my YouTube channel, The Benjamin Dixon Show. Plenty of content there. Jesse, thanks so much for having me, man. It's an honor.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.